The name of it is called Outlaw Deep. It's like 5 or 6 tracks I did for the New York Times. It's called that because it's a project, a guy named Ian Urbana, investigative journalist. He wrote a book about it called The Outlaw Ocean, basically about the lawlessness that occurs out there.
Reading The Outlaw Ocean was a truly eye-opening experience. I had no concept of how vast and lawless the oceans truly are. Believe me when I say it was like learning about an entirely new world. The level of corruption and utter lack of regard for life on display by various government and corporate entities was beyond maddening.
We had never met or anything, but he said, "Hey, I'm a really big fan of your music, and we're doing this project. We will stay." Really worked well with different pieces. Lately, I've really been into like the lo-fi, jazzy stuff. I actually started off as a hip-hop producer. Before I was doing ghetto tech, doing house. I was like making beats for local rappers. So I always had a love for hip-hop. Even put out a hip-hop album a couple of years back on CD, but it was only released in Japan. Golden Harvest. And that was more like kind of golden era hip hop, early mid-90s jazzy vibe on it. At this moment, working on a remix for Detroit Swindle. I believe they're from the Netherlands. I played with them before over in Berlin a couple years back. Yeah, they're really nice dudes. I actually play a few of their tracks in my sets whenever I play out. So we're kind of on similar wavelengths with certain tracks that we like to play and like to make. I actually had started to incorporate CDJs into my sets. I'm just more comfortable with vinyl. I make a lot of music, and a lot of people, send me tracks and stuff. And sometimes like the stuff people would send to me is not available on vinyl, but it would be like a really hot track. Or if it's things that I'm working on, if I hadn't pressed it up or something, or the label I sold it to, if it was a digital label, then I wouldn't have it on vinyl to play it. So I always kind of felt restricted because I would be doing a set and then I'd think about tracks that I was working on and I would think, oh man, I wish I could. I would love to try this one out on the crowd right now. I would always bring a USB with me full of unreleased music. And I would drop those in the sets, and I felt it expanded my performances immensely, as opposed to my usual strictly vinyl sets. Right when I was getting into it, just getting good, then the virus hit.
Were you scheduled to play Movement this year?
I was scheduled to play some after parties. It's been over 10 years that I actually play the festival, but I always do a few after parties every year during that weekend.
I know that you used to work at Record Time.
Oh yeah, that was the golden era of record stores. Working there, it was like a community meetup sort of place where every DJ, every genre would come there. And it wasn't just that people would come there just to shop, get their stuff and leave. No, they would come and hang out for hours. Talk about gigs, talk about tracks, music, what's happening in the scene and the industry. The guys who are traveling the globe would talk about the gigs they're having overseas. And
like DJs would come into the city, that's where people would take them, would be Record Time.
If you were a DJ coming in from wherever, New York, Chicago, Europe, Record Time was on your list of places that you have to see, have to visit. I know when I first started off making tracks, when I was making ghetto tech stuff, for sure I was listening to Juan's tracks. Studying it, Juan specifically. Studying his tracks, Like what type of snares is he using? What sort of bass sounds? You know, I definitely have sampled some of Juan's tracks. I try to incorporate that into it just for the sake of, well, I know that's hot. I know people like it. So let me try to make my stuff as close to the structure of that as possible. So at least I'll know how it's built, people will like.
My feeling is with Detroit, everybody's listening and there's a lot of talk and competition.
Most of that is friendly competition. You know, it's friendly. Like if one of us has a train wreck, you know, the other DJs will be, and stuff. But then the same thing will happen. The next guy gets on and they mess up, then we'll be laughing or whatever. It's all in good fun, because about the only person who would have flawless sets, Mike Huckabee. You know, God rest his soul. Precision beyond a human capacity. I'm still mystified to this day in his sets. It would just be spot on, synced up, and he's playing strictly vinyl too. And it's just perfect.
How has that affected you this year?
He'll pop into my mind when I'm working on a track. What we would like to do is play our music for each other when we're working on something, to get each other's opinion on it. And sometimes I'm making a track and I'd be like, oh man, I know Huck would have loved this. I bet Huck would have been smiling on this one. Knowing Huck though, he wouldn't want you to be sad, moping around, thinking about him. Huck was always like, you know, you got to keep moving forward. You always got to keep working. You got to have a plan. You got to have a strategy. Don't get caught up in despair. Huck would be very displeased if you're just sitting here sad, just like, dang, you know. Huck would be like, nah, fool, what you doing? You better fire that gear up and get to work. He's in a whole nother dimension, reality, and he's trying to learn all he can about wherever environment or how things work where he's at, how he can make the best of his new situation that he's in. Huck's probably thinking about us like, oh, them fools will be all right. They'll figure it out.